What's today? Tuesday with us. Tuesday evening with us. So welcome to our TC talks on tenant rights. And of course, TC stands for Toronto Center. Some people do ask that. What does TC stand for? Thank you all for taking the time to join us this evening for our last TC talks for 2025. I've been doing this now for, I think, 3 years now, and it's been very informative and fruitful. Until our neighborhood town hall starts in the fall. So as TC talks come to an end, our neighborhood town halls start. My name is Councilor Chris Moyes. I am the Councilor for Toronto Centre, Ward 13. This is the currently second year hosting TC Talks. And we host these panels to bring expert information to you with an opportunity for you to ask questions directly to our special guest. We have a very eventful evening with a lot of to cover. I know you have all been looking forward to our diverse professional panel discussion about what tenant rights are, how tenant rights are defined, and how we are continuing to expand that definition to protect the residents of Toronto. I'm a little biased because, for me, it's Toronto Center, but as a councilor, it's all Toronto. But before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered today on sacred land, territories of Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat Chippewa peoples. The Wendat and the Chippewa peoples. Toronto today is home to many diverse people, including Africans who were trafficked during the Atlantic slave trade and the descendants. This land is subject to the District 1 Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which compels everyone to stewardship of the land. We must recognize that we all need to eat and live off the abundance of the land equally, and we recognize the same reality for our future generations. Without intentionality and care, we cannot honor these responsibilities and pay respects to the Indigenous elders and ancestors to show that we understand that we are all treaty people. So again, I'm going to go over the code of conduct. This is a safe and inclusive space. Everyone must be treated with respect and dignity. Discrimination or harassment of any form, whether verbal or physical, will not be tolerated. We believe in fostering an atmosphere that encourages open dialogue and productive conversation. Comments should be constructive, respectful, and related to the discussion at hand. Everyone has the right to privacy. Those who do not wish to be photographed, videotaped, or recorded should request a sticker from the registration table at the back. Attendees taking photos, videos, or recordings must obtain the consent of the subjects of the photos, videos, and things. By following this code of conduct, we can have a productive discussion. And thank you for your cooperation in advance. The agenda. So we're going to start off with a presentation from the district manager and divisional engagement lead from Rent Safe TO of the City of Toronto, followed by a presentation from Acorn Canada about how to stand against intimidation, outstanding repairs, ageism, and renovictions. Then a presentation about housing law from Neighborhood Legal Services. And finally, a presentation about the city's housing trusteeship program from Neighborhood Information Host. Our panelists will provide some context from a policy lens, community advocacy lens, legal lens, and a practical programming lens. Then we will break out into panel discussions between our panelists. And finally, we will facilitate questions period, and then we will wrap up for the evening. That was a mouthful. I hope you caught all that. So first up is going to be Rent Safe TO. Alana Riaz is the Divisional Engagement Lead, acting for the Rent Safe TO team in Municipal Licensing and Standards, better known as MLS. Alana has been a supervisor in MLS since 2024 Prior to working in MLS, Alana has worked in the City of Toronto's Children's Services and Revenue Services Division. Accompanying Alana is Janet Stockel. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Janet is the district manager for the Rent Safe TO team in MLS. Janet has been district manager in Rent Safe TO since 2019 and has worked in MLS since 2014. Prior to working in MLS, Janet was a City of Toronto prosecutor for close to 15 years. And so without any further ado, I'll ask our two panelists, Alana and Janet, come on up and do your thing. Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
So I will lower the lights so you could see your presentation.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alana. I started as a supervisor with Rent Safe TO. I'm currently in an acting position doing divisional engagement lead, so that's why I'm here with you all tonight. So thank you for having me. So today we are going to be talking about Rent Safe TO, apartment building standards. Next slide. All right. So just an overview of the program. So Rent Safe TO is a bylaw enforcement program with the City of Toronto. It was established in 2017, and we ensure that building maintenance is being done in apartment buildings across the City of Toronto. And this program does apply to all of the apartment buildings in the City of Toronto that are 3 stories or more and 10 units or more. So it does total about 3,600 apartment buildings throughout the city that are registered with the program. So today we'll just quickly talk about the registration process for buildings that qualify. We'll talk about building evaluations. We also conduct building audits, which we will talk about, and then responding to service requests as well. So registrations and renewals. So every apartment building, like I said, that are three stories or more and 10 units or more are required to register with the Rent Safe TO program. Once they're registered, building owners are required to renew annually and also pay an annual fee. And that fee is typically due on July 1st every year. So we're coming up to when fees are due. And for 2025, the registration and renewal fee is $26.75 per residential unit. So every apartment building has a different renewal fee to pay, depending on the size. So we'll get into evaluations and audits. So the evaluation process. So this is something that we actually just finished, we're actually just starting today, our apartment building evaluation. So all the apartment buildings are evaluated every 2 years. An evaluation consists of an inspection of all of the common areas of the building, hallways, lobby, compactor rooms, exterior as well. And each element is given a building or a score between 1 and 3, 1 being the lowest and 3 being high. And it reflects how well the property is in compliance with the property standards bylaw as well as the apartment building standards bylaw. And so how this process works, the evaluation is scheduled by a bylaw officer. They show up on the day of the evaluation. They conduct the walkthrough and the inspection, typically with property management or the owner present. And then there's a final score that is established once it's all complete. So just a brief history of the building evaluation tool, because it has undergone some changes in the most recent years. So originally, every apartment building was evaluated every 3 years, dependent on how well they scored the previous year. The evaluation was only comprised of 20 categories that were all equally weighted, and in-suite conditions were not reflected at all. Officers had their discretion to be able to score all the elements from 1 to 5. So it was quite a large scoring that they could provide. And then only buildings that scored 50% or below were then audited. So in 2021, there was a redesign, lots of consultation that was done with different stakeholders to determine what changes would need to be made to improve the evaluation tool. So in June 2023, the new evaluation tool was launched, which is what we currently use now. Next slide. Okay, so the current evaluation tool, it is made up of 50 different categories in the common areas of the building, and it also includes mandatory logs and plans that the owner must have and be able to provide to us on the day of the evaluation. The categories are now scored between 1 and 3. Each category is weighted differently based on immediate health and safety concerns. And right now, buildings are evaluated once every 2 years. The other component that also began in last year at the beginning of the year was reactive data. So the proactive score is what you get on the day of the evaluation. The reactive data is what happens after. So this is a dynamic score. It's updated daily based on what we have on our system. And anytime we issue an order to comply or property standards order or a notice of violation, it actually will temporarily deduct the building evaluation score. So this is a reflection of both in-suite and common area issues that tenants are bringing to our attention. We're conducting investigations. We're seeing that there's a problem, a deficiency, and we're issuing paperwork. And now it's affecting their building score temporarily. So for every property standards order or notice of violation that's issued, it's a negative 1%. And then for an emergency order, it's a negative 2% until they comply with it. Okay. So just as an example, in this case, for example, a building has scored 75%. This is their proactive score based on those 50 different categories. Let's say perhaps, we have two separate investigations. We've issued two property standards orders. That building score is now 73% temporarily until they comply with the orders that we've issued. So the further impact of the building evaluation score is that the scores are posted publicly. So anybody can actually access the scores through our website. There's an interactive map. So if you just Google Rent Safe TO interactive map, it'll come up. You can actually search a property that is in a registered apartment building, and it will actually show you what the building scored. It will also show you open property standards orders, which I think there is a slide further down that we can you'll take a closer look, but it does provide a lot of information about what is happening at the building. The second impact of the evaluation score is the audits. So any building, all the buildings, once we're done the evaluations, the bottom 2.5% that score are then audited the following year. So an audit is a more comprehensive building inspection. So we kind of go together as a team. We actually just finished our audit season a few weeks ago. But we have a team of bylaw officers that come. They do walk top to bottom, and any deficiency that they find, they will issue property standards orders and notices of violation for everything that they see that day. The other thing that they do is tenant engagement. So they will also go door to door, engage with all the tenants, educate them about the Rent Safe TO program, and ask them if there's anything that is ongoing in their units that they would like to let us know about. The third component in which building scores impact is targeted tenant engagement. So this is relatively new, but what ends up happening is if a building score drops 5% or more for 2 consecutive months, it does get flagged and we do get notified, in which it means that targeted engagement will occur. So myself and a few other bylaw officers, we will attend the building. Again, we will door knock. We will educate tenants about the Rent Safe TO program, and we will ask if there is anything in your unit or perhaps in the common areas of the building that we don't know about, that you believe that there's an issue that you've already reported to property management and it's going unattended to. And so we're also at that time accepting service requests from tenants as well, and just providing general information. So this is just I know it's really small, but it's just a sneak peek of what the online interactive map actually looks like. So it does provide just a brief overview of what the current building evaluation score is, what the proactive score is, what the reactive score is. It will actually show you how the building how it's scored in all the different categories. And then it will also show you if there is an open property standards order or notice of violation that we have issued. and I believe it will also tell you when it expires, so when they have to comply by. Service requests. So service requests, we accept all year round, and they are a very big component of what RentSafe TO does. So we'll start with what RentSafe TO can help with. So we can address vital services like no electricity, no water, low or no heat, breaches of security, property maintenance, snow or ice clearing, things like that. If there's damage, broken windows, cabinets, peeling paint, leaks, sometimes that happens as well. So we can address that. Common area cleanliness, as well as pests and waste management concerns. Things that are outside of rent safe TO authority is mold. So mold is actually a public health issue. We are not subject matter experts. We cannot confirm if something is mold. So this is something that is typically addressed by Toronto Public Health. But if there are additional concerns that are contributing to the potential mold, that is something that we can look at. The other thing is that technically we do address, but it does also fall under public health, is bed bugs. So public health does have a bed bug unit in which they can support residents who are having some challenges with getting rid of bed bugs. They are a very small team, but we do address them as well as pests. So I will just point that out. Another thing we don't address is anything related to the fire code. That would be Toronto Fire Services that would have to do their own inspections and their own enforcement action for that. Building code permits and construction is usually done by Toronto Buildings. Elevator operations are the Technical Standards and Safety Authority, TSSA. So they are the subject matter experts in the mechanics of an elevator. That would be who you would go to if you have concerns about that. Electrical issues are the Electrical Safety Authority. Residential Tenancy Act would be the LTB. And then anything related to theft or other criminal matters is something that Toronto Police Services would have to address. So we do hear about all of these concerns on a regular basis, and we do our best to try and refer tenants to the appropriate resources and supports to get the help that they need. So yeah, if that happens and we end up hearing from you based on these concerns, we'll just try and help redirect. So just a quick overview of our investigation process. So when we receive a service request, so the expectation is that tenants are reporting whatever problem it is that they're having. You're reporting it to property management, the landlord, or the landlord first. For vital services, the property owner has 24 hours to respond and attend to the issue. For all other requests, building operators typically give them about 7 days. If there is no response received, we do encourage residents to contact 311, submit a service request, and we will receive it on our end. And so 311 will, so a lot of people don't know, 311 is a hub of, you can call the city with any problem that you have, you call 311 and they triage it to the appropriate division based on what you're describing. So 311 will actually create that service request to you, and it then gets pushed through to RentSafe TO. Once we receive it, a bylaw officer will be assigned to the service request, and response times vary based on what exactly the concern is. We work off of a priority response model. So again, vital services are obviously a priority 1 for us. Things such as property maintenance, priority 2 might give us about 5 days to respond. Okay. So after we get the service request, the bylaw officer will then contact you, usually by phone. They want to gather more information. They will want to schedule an inspection with you to come out and actually take a look at what the issue is. If it's a common area issue, they don't necessarily need you to attend. They can do it themselves, but they will let you know that they will be doing that and to take their own photos. If you don't respond to the bylaw officer, they will usually do what they can to get in touch with you, whether it be by phone, by email. They'll wait a few days, they'll try again. If there's no response, the file will be closed. So it's really important that we're kind of getting a response back so that we can follow up accordingly. Once that's all said and done, so the bylaw officer will attend the property and determine if there is a deficiency found. If there is no deficiency to the bylaw found, the file will be closed. The investigation is done. If there is a problem found and there is a violation to the bylaw, the bylaw officer will then determine what the appropriate next steps will be, whether it be if education needs to happen to property management, if a property standards order needs to be issued, they will determine what the next steps are going to be based on the situation. Every situation is very different. There are different challenges with every situation, so we kind of allow them to assess the situation to then determine what they're going to do next. If an order or notice of violation is issued, the bylaw officer will reattend once the date for compliance has expired. So usually for a property standards order, it's about 30 days. If it's something in suite, they will want to come back and do a reinspection, take a look at what has been done, what hasn't been done. And then if it's resolved, the file will be closed. If not, again, they will determine what needs to happen next, or whereabouts in the process the landlord is to complying with the issued order. Okay. So in terms of advocating for tenants' rights, Rent Safe TO, we do uphold the right to safe and clean homes, obviously by attending to service requests, conducting building evaluations, building audits. We do firmly believe that this is of great importance to us. So something that we try to do every day. We also ensure landlords understand their responsibilities. There's a lot of landlord and owner education that has to happen and does happen to make sure that they're aware of what they're responsible for doing and that they're held accountable when they are not doing those things. So we do that. We also engage with tenants and provide access to information. So as I said, we do tenant engagement sessions at properties. We do building walkthroughs. We do community events such as these, just to make sure that tenants are also getting education and aware of what is available to them. We promote proactive maintenance of buildings. So by doing these building evaluations, we are hoping that we are able to give a property owner a general overview of how well they are complying with the bylaw. We understand that when a building is given a score, just because it's scored a 90 doesn't necessarily, it's good, but it also means that there's about 10% that they're missing. So we're always looking for ways to be able to give property owners feedback and letting them know, hey, you need to actually fix some of these things to improve not only the score, but the living environment for everyone in the building. We also connect tenants with resources as well, whether it be tenant advocacy groups, legal aid, other city divisions. We do our best to kind of make sure that tenants, regardless of what their concerns are, we're able to connect them with the proper supports as well. So some of the challenges that we experience when trying to advocate for tenants' rights or kind of keep it in the forefront of our minds while we're doing our work every day. So lease agreement disputes. This comes up a lot. So things like rent increases, affordability, harassment, evictions. These things do fall under the landlord tenant board. So again, we would do our best to provide tenants with resources to be able to address some of those challenges, but it does fall outside of Rent Safe TO's scope to be able to address. The other thing that is a challenge is working within the bylaw framework. So we are governed by the Toronto Municipal Code and the work that we do, which doesn't always encompass the entirety of a situation. So for example, frequent service disruptions. Sometimes that is more challenging to enforce because oftentimes they are planned, and the complaint is that it's constantly happening. They're constantly planning these service disruptions. It makes it really difficult for us to enforce because the requirement is that they are at least notifying you. So again, it does make it a little bit challenging on our end, but something we definitely try our best to work through. Another challenge is the reliance on skilled trades. So I touched on this a little bit earlier. We are not subject matter experts in mold. We are not subject matter experts in pests, HVAC, things like that. And so we're reliant on some of the reports that we get. As long as they are by a licensed technician, we kind of have to decide how we're going to move forward based on the information that we're being provided. And so this can also help, this can kind of delay investigations as well, because now we're involving other people. We need to schedule contractors, things like that. So sometimes that can be really challenging. Resourcing. So we are a team of about 41 bylaw officers, 5 supervisors, 1 engagement lead, which is myself, and 1 manager, which is Janet here. And we are overseeing all these apartment buildings. And so it is a lot of work, and we do our best to make sure that the standards that we're trying to enforce are upheld. But yeah, I think the more we're hoping that the more resourcing we get, the more the program evolves and grows, that we be able to do more improvements for the program as well. Last thing before I move on, my last point that also makes it challenging is sometimes our neighbors. So sometimes what ends up happening, what can make it also really challenging for rent safe TO, is when there are issues between tenants. And sometimes people forget that they're shared living spaces. And so that also makes it kind of challenging sometimes. So it's really important for everyone to remember that, we're all being respectful of the shared communal spaces that we are living in. And then just some quick highlights about our program. So in 2024, we conducted over 1,800 building evaluations. We'll do about the same this year, maybe a little bit more. We also conducted 47 building audits in 2024. This year, I can confirm we did conduct 56 building audits that we just finished. In terms of issued orders or notices of violation, just over 1,900. We also attended 194 stakeholder engagement events with the community as well. Rent Safe TO did win a City Manager's Award in terms of implementing the new building evaluation app with all of the changes, and then also bylaw officers there's an app that they're able to use to actually do the scoring live while they're at the property, rather than having to do it all manually. And then also the Rent Safe TO interactive map was also launched, which they were recognized for as well. And again, I spoke about that a little bit earlier, and that's all available to you all. And just so these things, they help us be more accessible, and they help us be a little bit more transparent with the communities that we're serving, to be able to share that information with you. And then lastly, again, targeted engagement. This was something that was introduced in 2024. And yeah, I think this kind of just shows the involvement and the growth of the program. We're doing more to make sure that people are complying with the city's bylaws, and that the homes that you're living in are safe and maintained. So I'll leave you with this. If you're having any property standards issues, whether it be in your unit or in common areas of the building, please make sure that you are giving property management an opportunity to attend to it. So letting them know via service requests or work order, however it is that your building does it. And if they are not attending to the issue, please contact us at 311. We will have a bylaw officer come out and do an inspection and investigation into the issue. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Alana, and for Janet for providing support. I also want to mention too, this is a hybrid meeting, and so we do have people joining us online. Thank you for joining us online, and it will be also recorded and be posted later on as well. Next up is, I'm going to try my best to pronounce your name properly. Chuana Sushan. Oh, okay. I'm ahead of myself. How embarrassing is that? Next up is Stacy Semple. Is a leader in the downtown Acorn chapter, including Ward 13 Toronto Center. She has organized her own building and neighboring buildings to win reductions in above the guidelines rent increases, and to win countless repairs. Stacy has helped champion and advance Acorn's campaigns for landlord licensing, banning rent evictions, and winning tenant climate justice, Stacy is passionate about getting her neighbors involved in learning their rights and standing up together as tenants. Stacy, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. Tonight, we're going to talk about the tenant rights and, of course, Toronto Acorn. So what is Acorn? Okay. We're a community union made up of low and moderate income people. We win on issues including tenant rights, fair banking, affordable housing, and disability justice. Many social justice issues that affect many people across the community. We are a local and national organization. We're a member-driven organization, meaning our campaigns come from our members at the grassroots level. We now have over 180,000 members across Canada. We have chapters all across Canada and just 6 chapters alone all throughout the GTA. One thing about organizing tenants is knowing your rights. It's one thing that when I joined Acorn, I was amazed how many tenants didn't know. And when we visited them and tried to get their neighbors engaged, we found out superintendents, landlords were regularly harassing them, finding out who was attending, not to do it, and also threatening evictions. We use these sections in the Residential Tenancy Act often, Section 83, that landlord, if they were to apply for eviction, they refuse the grant for that application because the tenant has the right to organize. A landlord will intimidate, so please have the support of Acorn that you get together. There is power in numbers. And again, too, as I mentioned, especially I find superintendents, once we attend buildings and we hear or get threatened by them or their security guards, we do mention this section 233 of the Residential Tenancy Act, that we have that right also to organize and develop an organized association. Excuse me, I'm a little tongue-tied right now. So just some myths about your rights. If you get involved with a tenant association, a union, your landlord can evict me. No, the Residential Tenancy Act says a landlord cannot evict or interfere with a tenant trying to organize. And then another question we often get, I can't invite groups like Acorn, FMTA, and No Dem Evictions to come and help out in our meetings. You can invite tenant organizers to your home like any other guest. Please, both Acorns out there, right at the back there, just get some contact information. We'd be more than happy to meet you and assist you. The landlord can forbid me from holding meetings in the common area or in my unit. No, they can't. If the lobby isn't large enough to meet with you and your neighbors, we often meet just in the front of the building, as long as we don't block the entrances on that, so that we give access to everybody, the general public. And the landlord can prevent me from communicating, talking, knocking on doors, or delivering flyers to my fellow tenants. Again, the landlord cannot obstruct tenants from trying to organize a tenant association or union. We've been actually told many times they're going to call the police and everything. Even the police have shown up from time to time. Please continue. We usually have people that actually live in that building. They're free to invite us and also knock on the doors to educate them, knowing your rights and standing up to a landlord who may be aggressive or harassing. One of the big campaigns for Acorn is Healthy Homes. Huge advocate on that, maintenance, repairs, bylaw, and enforcement. Property standards and your rights. So your landlord is legally required to keep your building in a state of good repair, or SOGR. That was brought up a lot as an acronym at the city budget meeting. So that includes pest control treatment for bed bugs, cockroaches, mice, and more. Heat in the winter, access to hot and cold water, working stove, oven, and fridge, safe unit and common areas, elevator maintenance and repairs in your unit. And that's just the start of the list. There is so many more things to address. Your landlord must maintain these standards even if you are behind in rent or currently in the landlord and tenant board. The one thing that Acorn campaigns for, go ahead, is landlord licensing. Acorn organizes actions, rallies, letter campaigns, speaking at City Hall, and obviously being in the news. We met with the mayor on Saturday at, ironically, 11 Bergamot, one of your slides. And she actually also signed all of our demands and agreed that actually there's got to be a review with rent safe, that it shouldn't have passed at 90%. So the demand highlights are city inspections in unit. We're constantly, Acorn is engaging with Rent Safe TO regularly to actually increase the inspection in units. There seems to be some communication misunderstanding with respect to that. And also more fees on the fines of bad landlords. It's amazing what we've discovered across the GTA of what landlords are getting away with. The city forces the landlord to do repairs, as again, Mayor Chow actually on Saturday had mentioned that the city should be doing is if the landlord is not doing those repairs, the city will do them. And then the city will then take that cost and put it on the landlord's property tax. And then, of course, landlord licensing, similar to DineSafe. We actually met with Rent Safe TO here not too long ago, and we asked for that similar program like DineSafe with the buildings for green, yellow, and red cards to identify buildings that are safe and others that need warning. Unfortunately, our lovely friend here, Janet, actually accused us that we wanted to shame landlords. We're going to be talking more about that, hopefully, ideally, with them in the future. Acorn has won with the city. The amazing work that Acorn has done, we've been around since 2005 now, 20 years, just over actually. So in 2008, multi-residential apartment building program. 2017, we actually won with the city the Rent Safe TO program that's been around now for 8 years. And then 2021 to 23, we got more inspectors for the Rent Safe TO program and more protocols to win repairs. And then just recently in 2024 to 25, we got more inspectors again for the Rent Safe TO. Again, at the annual budget meeting, the standard operating procedure is coming soon. So how to win repairs with your landlord and Rent Safe TO. So remember, your landlord cannot ask you for extra money to do repairs. Again, when we visited on Saturday at 11 Bergamot, we discovered the landlord was charging them extra money for repairs done to drywall or appliances, etc. Tenants in private buildings, co-ops, and TCHC need to call 311 for help, obviously. But going back to how to win repairs with your landlord and Rent Safe TO. So as actually Lana had mentioned, submit your maintenance request to your landlord first and take a photo. We recommend cell phones nowadays. We need to use that technology. You need your proof. So take a photo, especially with some landlords, they use that old school maintenance request forms with those 3 copies, etc. So after 7 days, call 311 and make a file about your maintenance request. Ask for the Rent Safe TO program and write down the file number they give you. And the city will ideally be in touch soon. So organizing as a group. There are about 45 Rent Safe TO officers for 3,500 buildings in Toronto. That's a lot of work. That's why we attend city budget each year. We keep asking them for more money because they need a better program to address such a wide population throughout the Toronto area. To effectively see repairs, to get a group of tenants together, Acorn also does petitions, meetings, we send work orders together, and we organize with Acorn, and again, we get lots of news coverage. We're regularly, just have to reach out to the Acorn office. We have monthly chapter meetings in, again, the 6 different chapters across the GTA, and also the lovely organizer staffs, and that they are just great at approaching and helping you out with anything that you may need. The campaign to ban rent evictions. This is coming into effect at the end of July, folks. This is something that I worked a lot on with as we attended City Hall, as Acorn's been fighting for this for quite some time. So we saw that there was a rise in renovictions when the landlord renovated their unit as a way to displace tenants or increase the rent. So in 2017 in Ontario, 3,012s and M13s were filed with the tribunal. In 2022, there were almost 6,000 NTs at 12, excuse me, and M13s filed, and renovictions had become an epidemic. It's one way that a landlord accuses gets away with getting rid of older tenants so that they can just put a slab of paint on there and then charge usually about 45% more, and that with it to get more money for that piece of property. Acorn's campaign demands to ban renoviction. When units are renovated, the tenant has the right of refusal to return the renovated unit with the original lease, so the original rent. During the renovation, the landlord must pay the difference of the rent for the tenant at the temporary unit, and the landlord pays for moving costs to and from the unit. This is key things to remember, folks, because as it goes into place, we're going to be watching to make sure that landlords don't do things on the sly. They're famous for doing that. And that City of Toronto is going to ensure that the licensing requirements, approval stage, information and education, the tenants are all put in place. And the tenant does have that right to refusal to come back to that tenant, to that same unit once it's been repaired and be paying that original rent. So in winter of 2024, Hamilton, Acorn, and allies, got Hamilton to pass the first municipal renovation license in Ontario. Hamilton was very key. That way, Toronto started looking, and in fall of 2024, the Toronto Acorn and allies got Toronto to win a renovation license, which will officially be effect at the end of the month in July. We're very proud of that. We now have other municipalities in Ottawa, London, and I just heard today, actually, Kitchener now is looking at getting a renovation bylaw. Unfortunately, Doug Ford, provincial government, is not doing his job, so the municipalities are stepping up. Next slide. So the campaign for full rent control, banning above the guideline rent increases, better known as AGIs. That's how originally I got involved, actually, with Acorn. I was at the dog park at Allen Gardens, a neighbor on Carlton, actually, with another dog. They handed me a flyer. I discovered Acorn because I used to live out in the suburbs all my life. This is the first time I've lived downtown Toronto. I've always worked down here, mind you. But having said that, I learned about Acorn and I started attending meetings. After the first few meetings, I've gotten involved. And with the AGIs, again, with the provincial government, we're asking them to rewrite the Residential Tenancy Act. They have to be banned or just taken off the Residential Tenancy Act. Because even just REITs, Real Estate Investment Trust, corporate landlords, as better known, they've already admitted that it's an amazing revenue opportunity for them. And they get to do all these capital projects and the tenant gets to pay. And it's just not fair. It's an investment property for them. For us, it's simply a roof over the head that we'll never own. Next slide, please. So every year, the provincial government, lovely Doug Ford, sets a percentage which landlords can legally increase rent. In 2025, the legal amount is 2.5%. In addition to this yearly increase, landlords can apply for the above guideline rent increases, or as I said, AGIs. So the landlords are able to apply to the Landlord Tenant Board for reasons including major capital work that has been paid for and finished, like balconies or elevators. Conservation programs have been paid for and finished, like low energy lights or low flow toilets. Safety elements have been paid for and finished, like security cameras. Accessibility elements have been paid for and finished, like wheelchair ramps, automatic door openers, And then there's been extraordinary increase in the landlord's, or if there's been extraordinary increase in the landlord's property tax. Now, the maximum increase a landlord can ask for is 9% over a period of 3 years. Okay. Unfortunately, with all of these capital projects, it just amazes me that, well, for instance, one of my AGI items was installing new toilets. We didn't ask for them. We don't pay the water bill, but we had to pay the bill of, I think it was 230,000 among 75 tenants. Go ahead. So how to fight your AGI application? The landlord will first apply to the LTB for AGI, and then the LTB will send a date for your case management hearing on Zoom. Don't miss your case management hearing. If you do, actually, the adjudicator or mediator, Sakana will correct me on that one. They will automatically fine for the landlord if nobody shows up. It's important to show up. And also to, if you do not have Zoom, your local legal clinic can help you attend. Afterwards, submit your argument against the landlord's evidence for the AGI to the LTB for the written hearing. Only pay the approved percentage the tribunal approves after the written hearing. It's one thing I found actually with many AGIs that tenants are paying just when they get the rent increase notice, they just go ahead and pay it. They don't argue it, they don't question it. And it just, for instance, again, my AGI in my building, we got it down by 0.6%, I believe it was, for the larger increased tenants. And people now have to fight with the property management to get money back because they overpaid. So you wait for that tribunal to approve and get your order from the tribunal before you pay. However, saying that, remember to put that money aside because you only have a certain amount of time once that order is issued from the tribunal to pay that amount. And so you don't want the landlord also trying to evict you after the fact. So remember, letters from the landlord saying that they have applied for a rent increase doesn't mean anything. So wait for the paperwork from the tribunal saying that they've received the landlord's application. You do not have to pay the rent increase until the tribunal approves it. I just said this. And however, this process can take years. Typically, I've heard for the most cases, it says 2 years for an AGI application to be heard. And if the AGI is approved, you will need to pay the increase from the date your landlord applied, which can be thousands of dollars, depending on the percentage. I know typically with the tribunal, there is that process of about 3 months to pay any of the increase that you might be outstanding owed for the last 2 years. But you can request a longer period. And of course, it's up to management to agree to that longer period. So Acorn Ontario's campaign for provincial rent control. Ontario Acorn's research shows that the AGI data for 2022 shows that 78% of applications filed are by big corporate landlords. Over the past 2 decades, the number of AGIs have gone up by 107%. Sometimes landlords receive grants from the government to do green renovations, then put these costs on the tenant to double dip and make a profit. There's a lot of federal money out there actually for accessibility and climate change, etc., that we're not aware of. I've done some research for some buildings actually for those 2 items, and the landlord then proceeds to try to actually charge the tenants under an AGI application. Ontario Acorn's demands is obviously, as I mentioned earlier, is to ban AGIs. The landlord must keep building in repairs. Otherwise, they purposefully let them fall apart so they can justify themselves doing a capital expenditure and then can apply for an AGI. Very similar to rent evictions. Rent evictions we saw as a key as well, that they would neglect the building, so it'd be in such a state of repair that they'd have to shut the building down to say it needed to be renovated, when really they could have prevented that as well. Not just the other motivation, getting an old tenant out so they could charge more rent. So Ontario Acorn's actions include MPP offices in Ottawa, Toronto, London, Hamilton, and Peel. We do petitions and we do outreach. with the MPP offices, and we also engage with the city as well, but we also invite them to events. As I mentioned, we met recently with Mayor Chow and a rent safety officer at 11 Bergamot. Very positive meeting. She signed off on all her demands, and the mayor's office has actually reached out to us to actually hold monthly building meetings like that from going forward. So we're hoping actually we can arrange for 500 Dawes Road. And then having said that is it as well, we were engaged with Rent Safe TO because that program is somewhat fairly new and needs vast improvement. Unfortunately, when we did meet with them, I just got wind of the ombudsman report. And obviously, if people heard in the news, the ombudsman did not give them a glowing report. There needs to be a lot of cleanup there in that area, unfortunately. So Acorn's demands for Toronto Community Housing. That's another program that I know from other Acorn members we engage with a lot of. And in June of 2024, Acorn members in Toronto Community Housing organized a huge meeting with the mayor and the director of the Toronto Community Housing Corporation. Acorn members pressured them to sign on to the following demands: hire more staff and tenant service hubs in the client care center, mandate annual sensitivity training for all TCHC staff, prioritize staff recruitment and retention from TCHC tenants, do all outstanding work orders, schedule building-wide pest control treatments in all TCHC buildings, provide free assistance for tenants to prepare the units for pest control, provide access to trauma-informed mental health and addiction services, increase funding to the violence reduction program to all TCHC buildings, audit CCTV systems and conduct necessary repairs, and work with Acorn holding regular meetings to track progress on these demands. For TCHC, it's run by the city, and it's one thing, as I said, I know members. I haven't personally been in that, but I've heard lots of things with respect to how run down and how poor it's being run. So we're very grateful that over the last year now, we finally got the city's attention and we're starting to see gradual progress in that area. Now we're having regular meetings with TCHC to ensure follow-ups. So we've run accessibility changes and onward. I can't read that. Okay. So as I said, we've got 6 chapters across the GTA. There's one down for this area in particular, the downtown chapter meeting. I refer to always meeting the first Thursday of every month. Because of Pride, which I absolutely love this time of year, we're meeting the second Thursday this year, in July as a change. But remember the first Thursday at the lovely 519. They're a great community center. I adore the staff there. And of course, too, if you don't live in this area, reach out to Field 22 at Acorn Canada or go to visit the website. And of course, make a call. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. And thank you to Acorn for all the work that you have done over the many, many years and continue to do. Next up is Shuana. I'll try my best. Suchanna Sundra Arajan. You can correct when you come up. Holds a Juris Doctorate from the University of Windsor, earned in 2017. Her career includes various housing positions in the legal clinic system and a short stint doing family and clinical law. She articled at a legal clinic system in rural Ontario and then was a tenant duty counsel at a specialty housing legal clinic, the Advocacy Center for Tenants Ontario, for 4 years. Currently, she is a housing lawyer at Neighborhood Legal Services, where she continues to advocate for tenant rights and housing justice. Sujana, come up. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Suchanna. I'm a housing lawyer at Neighborhood Legal Services. First, I can start off giving you a bit of an overview of what Neighborhood Legal Services is. I'm one of 2 housing lawyers there. We also do immigration law and also social assistance. We are located at Queen and Jarvis. And yeah, we provide free legal services to low-income tenants. There's a financial eligibility criteria and also a catchment criteria, geographic location criteria. So I think if you live within this region, east of Yonge, south of Bloor, west of DVP, you would probably qualify for our services. And we're free because we're funded by Legal Aid of Ontario. So I kind of explained a bit of what we do. If you do have a housing issue, you can always come into our office. We will triage you to see if you can be booked in for an appointment with one of myself or one of the other lawyers. The common tenant issues that we see are maintenance issues, harassment issues, issues at TCHC, often having to do with subsidy, maintaining the subsidy, annual reviews, submitting documents. There's also a few tenant versus tenant issues that we see, and grievances with co-ops. So if you come to our office, you might get an appointment, you might get brief information on legal information, or in some cases, based on the strength of the case, we can also represent tenants. So as you guys have already kind of heard in previous presentations, the law that governs tenant rights is the Residential Tenancies Act. It governs specific types of tenants. So tenants who are not living with their landlord. So if you're sharing a kitchen and bathroom with your landlord, then you don't fall under the Residential Tenancies Act. Other things like if you're in a motel or emergency, like shelters don't fall under the RTA. Social housing falls under the RTA. And generally speaking, if you fall under the RTA, you generally have more rights than if you don't. Next slide. So the most common things that I see is the right for maintenance and repair from your landlord, and the right to live in the right to reasonable enjoyment, right? To be without substantial interference from your landlord or even sometimes other tenants. When it comes to repair, for the very starting point is that the landlord has to be aware of the maintenance issue, and there has to be a record that they're aware of it. So if you have submitted a work order, keep a copy of that, right? Keep some paper trail that you're making these complaints. Same thing with if your landlord is harassing you or substantial interference, and you want to keep a record, document what is happening, right? When it's happening, who is causing the issue, the names, because these are all very important when you are if you are filing an application at the Landlord and Tenant Board. So I will talk more about each application. So these are a couple of the tenant applications that you could file at the Landlord Tenant Board. The main ones are the T2, which is for harassment, substantial interference, and the T6 is for maintenance. So when you file an application, on the applications are on the LTB website, right? On the application, you have to detail the issues in a very thorough way, right? So dates, names, like what is happening, provide that in a chronological order. And all of the applications that go through the legal system, if you've ever been through the legal system, everything comes down to evidence. So Pictures, like was previously stated, pictures, recordings, videos, those are all what your case will come down to, right? Without that, it's very hard to push a file forward and be successful. Okay. And you on these applications, you can ask for remedies. A lot of the remedies, or the most important one, is damages, right? And then getting the landlord to do repairs. And I hear a lot of tenants say, oh, I don't want damages. I don't want money. That's not what this is about. I just want them to do the repairs, right? But the damages is what gives the landlord incentive to do the repairs, right? I see a lot of tenant applications that won't have any monetary damages. And once it gets to the board, you can't make changes to the application, right? So those details need to be there at the beginning. Right, next slide. So this is the T2 application. It kind of is a catch-all for everything that isn't maintenance. Like if you don't have vital services, the landlord has shut off the water or anything like that, it would be a T2. Those are the relevant sections of the law, which we don't really need to go over that. But one thing to remember is that when filing a T2 or T6, it must be within 1 year of when the issue started. So if it's been 2 years since there was an issue, you're out of the limitation period and the application will probably not be successful. All right, next slide. So same thing with the T6. Again, the unit must be in a good state of repair and fit for habitation. We heard this from Stacy's presentation. The same things have to go into the T6 application, right? Details, exactly what is happening, right? In a clear chronological order. One thing I will say about bringing any tenant applications is that if you probably know the LTB is so backlogged, it takes months to even year or more to have an application heard, right? So filing applications, it should be done in tandem with other avenues, right? So calling 311, having the city bylaw inspection, organizing, right? This alone isn't enough to have the tenant rights insured, right? Just because of the way the legal system is set up. Okay, next slide. So I just left some more resources here for you guys. I don't want to get too much into the nitty-gritty of all the law and stuff, but if you guys do have a housing issue, you're always welcome to walk into our office. You can fill out an online intake, and then you can be triaged from there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Susanna. Yes, go ahead. As Susanna was speaking, I saw people frantically taking notes and taking on their phones and taking pictures of these slides. If you reach out to my office or speak to my staff in the back, we're happy to provide you with the slides if you so desire, either a hard copy or a soft copy. Next up, last but not least, is Drew Dice. Is from the Hockley Valley in Southern Ontario. He graduated with honors in community services work from Trios College and has been working with the Neighborhood Information Post for the past 9 years. He's currently the team lead for the Voluntary Housing Trusteeship Program, the Neighborhood Information Post. He also teaches mindfulness, which I love, aside from his work in housing advocacy and community programming. Drew, come on up.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. As the last presentation, I won't linger on the details of the program. I'll get us through this as quickly as I can. So yes, my name is Drew Dice. I've been with the Neighborhood Information Post for about 9 or 10 years or so. The organization has been around for over 50 years now. It was established by a group of community members in the downtown east side for the community as a place where people could gather and exchange resources. Next slide. So we have a number of programs. We have the rent bank program, energy assistance. We have a walk-in area where people can use computers, check their email. We also have a mail and message service for the community. And we also do a number of activities for some of the Chinese seniors. There's a large population living in the area, so we put on events for them, and sometimes we host the Moss Park Summer Festival as well. But I work specifically for trusteeship, so that's what I'm going to focus on. So we serve over 200 clients a year, and we help prevent dozens of evictions. The people who come to us are tenants who are facing eviction. Next slide, please. So our primary goal as trusteeship workers is to keep the client housed. We do offer additional services in relation to their finances, like bill payments and allowance and budgeting. We can help pay off debts and just help with general money management for our clients. Next slide. Clients benefit many ways by enrolling in our program. Namely, it's about easing the burden and the stress of making sure that rent is paid on time. We help to empower the clients by teaching them about different areas of financing and connecting with resources and teaching them how to do some of their own budgeting so they can stay on top of everything that's going on in their lives, because it can get hectic. Next slide, please. Okay, so to get into the program, it's a bit difficult. Not anyone can apply. There really are only two categories. Right now, most clients come from this the second category, and that is people facing eviction. So this would be people who have been served an N1 or any sort of eviction notice, or even just a written warning from a landlord saying, you know, if you don't catch up on your rent, we're going to have to evict you. And at this point, they can get in touch with our program. Normally, that's not such a direct thing. People often call 311, or they'll call their local political representative, like Councillor Moyes, and they will direct that person to our office. We'll do an application for trusteeship, and we submit it to the City of Toronto, who's actually our funders. It's the Coordinated Access Program. And then they will approve it and send it back to us, and we'll start working with the client. I'll talk about those specifics in a moment here. So that's one way to get into the program, is if you're being evicted, come to us and we can help stop that eviction. The other way to get into the program, this is less common, but it is important as well, and that's people exiting homelessness. This would be someone who's living on the streets or in shelters for months or even years. And to make sure that when they do move into their new home, we want to make sure that they stay there. So they may not have the skills to budget on their own. make sure that their rent is being paid on time, so they can sign up to our program, and we're going to teach them those skills so that they can maintain their housing on their own moving forward. So those are the two ways to get into the program. Thank you. Yes, so as I mentioned, primarily we focus on rent and arrears to keep people housed, but we do have some other services. Next slide, please. We can help with monthly bills, Rogers, Bell, standard stuff like that, insurance payments. A lot of our clients are very overwhelmed by anxiety. They have issues staying organized, so we can help with all that stuff. Next slide. We can help with debts if they're smaller, manageable debts. If someone owes like $10,000 to a credit card company, it's probably better if we refer them to a debt consolidation place, but we can, again, help with smaller debts. We also assist our clients with allowance. That's one big problem that we see is people just go through their income way too quickly. A lot of our clients, probably most of them, are living on Ontario disability. So it's not a lot of money. So we can help them manage that. We ask all our clients to redirect either all their income or a portion of their income to our office so we can help them manage it. If a client only wants help with having their rent paid and they want to manage all the other funds on their own, that's fine with us. So we kind of suit our services to meet the individual needs of the client. But the main thing is keeping people housed. Next slide, please. We also assist with financial literacy. This, again, is not a mandatory thing for clients, but those who are interested, who want to empower themselves to become just more confident in again, just handling their own day-to-day finances. We can absolutely assist with that, how to do budgets, how to prepare if you have a fluctuating income, maybe it's not the same every month. Very simple things of that nature. A lot of people ask if we advise on investing and retirement and things like that. No, we absolutely do not. Again, it's just very day-to-day simple financing that we assist with. Next slide. So that is my contact information. I have a bunch of paper flyers that I brought. I will leave those out as well. If you'd like one, you can just come up and ask me. I'll give one. Next slide. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Toronto Rent Bank program. I don't work for the Rent Bank, but the main hub runs out of my office. So I do know a little bit about it, and they wanted me to just speak on it because obviously it's a very important program as well, specifically for preventing evictions. Okay. Yes. So it's just there to keep people housed, essentially. Next slide, please. So it used to be a program that offered loans. So if a person is falling behind on their rent, they could apply for a loan and then pay it back over time. But in the last few years, it's been changed to be strictly grants, and it seems to be working very well that way. There are lots of applicants for the program, and you can see here there are different amounts offered depending on the size of the unit and the situation. There are some eligibility criteria here for our trusteeship program. Generally, we're working with low-income individuals who are living in subsidized housing. But for Rent Bank, it's a bit different. They're looking for people who have steady income, who are not on disability, and who are living in market rent. So that's just the gist of it. But if a person would like to pardon me, apply for rent bank, really they just have to call the call center, and there will be a screening session done. So that's the best way to find out if a person is eligible or not. And yeah, there's that's the number for rent bank. There it is. So again, that's just a very brief overview of those two programs. So, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Drew. Great presentations today. So we're going to move into the panel discussion. But before we do so, we'll turn the lights on, first of all, and have the panelists come up to the front. But while we're rearranging a little bit, feel free to grab some snacks. We do have some coffee and I think some juice there and some other nice savory treats. So do help yourself. I don't want to take any of these treats home, so please help yourself. Less for me to carry. All right, let's get started. Or let's continue anyway. So again, thank you to our wonderful panelists for, going through uh, some really important subject matter with us. I was saying to some of our guests that, I actually learned a few things just by listening to some of you, all of you, I'm going to say. But really, you're not here to listen to me or for me to ask questions. It's really, I hope that you will engage and you will ask most of the questions. But to get us warmed up, I will ask maybe one or two. So here's a random question for me. Under what specific circumstances might an individual renting a room in a home not be protected by the Residential Tenancies Act, even if they are paying rent? Who wants to take that question? Go ahead, the lawyer.
So this is like exactly what I was talking about in my presentation, that if you're in a rooming house and you live with the landlord, you're sharing a kitchen and bathroom with the landlord, then you don't fall under the RTA, right? So a lot of times that landlords will kind of try to circumvent this by they don't live there, but then they're there on the weekends and then they drop off some other things. They have like a bed there and they're just there. If it's a gray area, you can try to fight it. But if you move in with the landlord, you are kind of you're a roommate. It's a boarding house type of situation and you don't have the protection of the RTA, unfortunately.
Just curious though, even though it's not under the RTA, would you not be protected, especially in today's economic crisis where I'm seeing actually people are sharing rooms in homes and things like that, where 2 or 3 people are sharing even rooms for that matter? Would it help to actually get a contract with somebody that would give you some protection rights with respect to keeping a roof over your head, right? No, okay, thank you. Curious.
I'll ask a follow-up question. Not on my list. So one of my colleagues, counselors in Brampton, Rowana Santos, she actually has been championing um, women who's been abused by some of these landlords. They poach them into their own homes and provide free services to them, maybe free rent. And so then they sort of find these people that are vulnerable and take advantage of them. And so they feel they have no way out because they would become underhoused. There's also shame associated with it as well as to how they get into these types of situations. So what advice do you have for people that may be in such a situation?
Well, I know from actually a coworker who, I mean, was in a position with respect to domestic abuse. There's lots of resources online. If you just, I mean, Google it for that matter. Having said that, one thing that I know with respect to shame, that I mean, that's within yourself. And honestly, how do I say? I mean, that old adage, like walk a mile in my shoes. You really need to actually embrace yourself and know that you have power and you have support out there. And I'm very grateful actually with City of Toronto, a coworker of mine, having to flee an abusive situation. There's multiple resources, counseling and shelters out there. I know also with Acorn, where we've had actually a couple of members that, 2 times over the last, I'll say 6 months, that have needed to find temporary housing, and Acorn's got those resources to help people to find that kind of housing.
Does the lawyer want to get involved? Do anybody else? No? Okay. It was a tough question, I know, but it's an important one to ask. Any questions from our audience? Okay. There are a few hands up. Our team's handing out numbers and mics. So we'll just wait for. There we go.
One. Oh, okay. Thank you so much. I have question because it's a very good coordination over here that we are dealing with tenant as a whole.
Thank you for your question. And that was exactly what Alana brought up in the presentation. We're here to support and educate. If the landlord isn't doing something in your specific unit, your friend's specific unit, and is negligent in that regard, contact 311. You can do it by phone, calling in. You can do it on the online, on the app as well. And then we will come out, talk with you or talk with the person who has raised a concern and investigate it and work as that mediator to make sure that it gets remedied between yourself and that of the landlord.
Number one, go ahead.
Hello, I'll try not to yell into this because I have a loud voice to begin with, but so my question is for Ms. Ruiz and Ms. Doekel. But I just wanted to say to Mr. Drew first, I had no idea your organization existed. I'm so impressed with what I've seen and what you guys do by the presentation today. I'm just wanted to point that out, that I think it's amazing what you're doing. So my question to Ms. Ruiz and Ms. Doerkel, hopefully I got that right. Can I call you Janet?
Call me Janet.
Okay, Janet and Alana.
Yeah.
So you provided a roadmap as to what it is you guys provide. So with 311 and whatever, and you provided that information, which is great. But in my situation or our situation as a whole in a different ward, we have followed your key or your standard operating procedure to a T. We've done everything that it is you pointed out, and as per the direction and the process, and like to a T, we followed it. And we're at a point where the bylaw officer, the bylaw enforcement officers, like our complaints are like being completely ignored. Like, and they're like, for instance, I did an MLS complaint or the municipal standards complaint, provided all the paperwork, provided everything. Never heard from the bylaw enforcement officer. Then I get my email notification that my complaint has been closed. That's just one example. Another one is where we're in an older building and there's a newer building being constructed next door. We have a construction mitigation and tenant communication plan that was agreed to by the developer, the landlord, and the municipality. But try to reach out to like your organization or your department. Nobody can even tell me who enforces these bylaw infractions or these standards. So everything that you had up there is great, but and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I haven't seen any results. We have followed your key to a T. Everything in every minute detail we've done. We're pretty organized as a tenant association, and we don't even get a call back from you guys. Like, not you in particular, obviously, but like, so somebody in that situation or us in that situation, what would our next move be? Because we've contacted the office of the mayor, we've contacted the city councilor, we've contacted the MLS, like the municipal standards or whatever. Like, we've done everything and we can't get anywhere with anybody. The only person that's expressed any interest in listening to us is the office of the mayor. So they've taken a keen interest in what we're doing. But when it comes to bylaw enforcement, when it comes to 311, when it comes to our local counselor, we're being completely ignored. So I'm hoping to hear some feedback as to what the avenue that we should do, or that you would be surprised by what it is that I'm saying, and that you would like, that would be something that you would take note of. Thank you.
So I can start. I'm sorry that it seems to be very challenging that you're going through this difficulty. I do want to connect with you afterwards to see if the right information you have is the right direction, because again, we work in partnership also with the counselor's office and the mayor's office, and anything that comes to them, they do link us and communicate with us in terms of, any escalations or things that are not being addressed. So I'd like to take a side note and have that conversation after the meeting just to make sure. In regards to the second part of your question, in terms of the development, so I can give you some information at a high level on that. Part of any sort of development to go through planning stages, Toronto buildings, things of that nature. So Toronto buildings is part of any development planning, and permit issuance has to do with dust mitigation plan and noise mitigation plan. So those are the persons you need to contact with that. So again, I'd be more than happy to share more information with you, or in terms of, how we can, escalate this and how we can get you some answers to the concerns that you have. Because if you're following the right processes, someone should have been responding to you. And I'm not sure, we'll look at what's taking place with regards to it, and if it's just misinformation or it's been, sidetracked of some sort. So I appreciate you bringing that to our attention.
And just to be clear, it's not my ward. This is a Etobicoke resident for those online. His counselor is Stephen Holiday. Well, he's in Ward 2. And I just want to add as well, though, when you do call 311, we've actually changed the system in that, we spend millions of dollars to revamp the system. So when you call, you actually get a reference number that can follow you throughout until it's closed. So the antiquated system that we've had in the past is no longer. I think we spent like $100 million in this new system, so it should work good now. Go ahead, Stacy.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add, I know that your area too, you mentioned that you're already organized, but you should reach out to Acorn. We do get a lot of publicity, and we work actually directly with Rent Safe TO. Your circumstances where Rent Safe TO closes the file, or file officers don't contact or reach out to tenants, seems to be a consistent comment that we encounter as well. So we recommend with Acorn, they've got a very long-standing and good relationship with Rent Safe TO, and we get that involvement, and we start to get a better answers sometimes. It can be very frustrating to try to get a hold of them, so I understand that. Yeah. Will do.
Thank you for coming all the way from Etobicoke. Next, who I know there's a few people in the audience.
Yes. Thank you all for the great work you're doing. I'm impressed. So my question is for Rent Safe TO. I didn't know about this actually. Like I was in school for a number of years, so I kind of dropped out of what's happening in the city. But I have a couple of clarifications that I'm looking for. So you mentioned that the criteria to have these apartments is 3 stories high, more than 10 units. Is it mandatory that the city is saying that all of those apartments have to be registered with you folks?
Yes.
And if they are not, are you folks finding them and making sure that they're registered and tenants know that they're registered?
Yes, so we will follow up with them. And usually there is lots of, we find the building owner, and then have a conversation with them and essentially tell them they have to register as per the bylaw.
Can tenants actually contact you to make sure that they're registering?
Yeah. So like if you have if there is a building, we have had that before where there was a tenant that was concerned that the building that they were in or the neighboring building wasn't registered. And we did end up finding an apartment building that needed to be registered. So yeah.
Okay, so we can do that. And the other thing is I'm being distracted. There's a lot of talk happening around me. The other thing is I just lost my train of thought and where I was going. Anyways, so you're saying like tenants can actually contact you and talk to you about a number of different things.
Yeah.
So just to add on to what Lana is saying, so we have the interactive web mapping. So every building that is part of the program is on that mapping. So you can just type a property address, like 123 John Street, and or whatever the address is that you have a concern about the building, whatever it is. And if it pops up there, then it's in our program and then we have information on it. But if it doesn't pop up there, then definitely contact us. Email us at rentsafeto@toronto.ca, contact 311, put a service request in. They will take that as well, saying, I don't believe that this building should be registered as part of the Rent Safe TO program. I'd like someone to verify that is part of the program that's there. And when again, we'll do our deployment there to make sure they fit all the criteria and action it appropriately.
Okay, and the other thing I wanted to know is for apartments that may not be registered or that are registered, sorry, are they inspected every 2 years without tenants calling 311 and having an issue? It's like kind of like the restaurant system
Yes,
where they're just being inspected
Yeah.
for safety and cleanliness and so on. So that's what you're doing.
that's correct. That's part of the process. Every other year, they're going to get evaluated. And then service requests. And then if they fail their evaluation or their bottom percentile, they'll get audited.
And it covers the grounds outside and the
Everything.
lighting,
Yep.
all the whole 19 yards. Okay, thank you
Exactly.
so much. I really,
Website, it has all the detailed categories. And again, if you have more questions, feel
Okay.
free to email us as well.
I'll probably want to talk to you after.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a few more people with cards. Just raise your hand if you have a card.
Hi, my name is Miguel, and I have a question for rent safety with regards building a score. Do you take under consideration when you score a building if you have access to the building condition assessment of the building? You know, it's like an X-ray of the building from top to bottom. They a company provides a complete detail of the state of the building from top to bottom. Is that what you guys are evaluate or consider when you put this information out for people to see? Because I have a hard time understanding the score of my building comparing to the document that I had to make through a freedom of information to get this information of the building. One of them recommends a total overhaul of the electrical equipment. So I'm concerned that that X aspect is not on the score evaluation. So that is my main question for rent safety. I know you're not experts, but this piece of information, technical report, is so important to consider, in my opinion. The question is for 311, and maybe legal community service can answer that question. I live in a building where I have lived in peace for 13 years. I was able to sleep 8 hours at night. Now I have neighbors who have moved in to the Rapid Housing Initiative program. Now, most of my neighbors are awake at night, and I had to sleep because I had to work in the community. I have to go to City Hall to visit my good friend Chris Moyes at City Hall and other committees of the city. We have been trying to talk to public health to consider noises as a public health priority, because high decibels over a period of time, especially 85 and over, can be damaging, can be negative in a person's body, right? For instance, I have lost hearing after several months trying. I know you have MLSE enforcement officers that can deal with these issues, but they are not available between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. So my complaints are between the hours of 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. I know you have technology. I'm aware of that. You can remotely evaluate a unit for noise. Okay. The question is, when will you be able to deploy this new technology to help us residents to get some um, um, validation of what we have been complaining for the last 8 months? Thank you.
Sujana, you want to start? I mean, maybe does legal services deal with tenant to tenant issues?
Yeah, well, the landlord has a positive obligation to ensure that you you can live and enjoy your unit, right? Free of substantial interference. So if you are making the complaints to the landlord, they have a positive obligation to do something about the noise issue, right? And if they don't continuously, then you might be able to bring a T2 application. But again, the timelines for hearing a T2 application is going to be very long, right? And then the other option, I think it's recording, gathering your evidence, or a T2, right? If that's an avenue that you're taking.
Is your services free?
We are free, yeah. We're funded by Legal Aid of Ontario, which is the provincial government.
I know your question was very complex, Miguel. So, I mean, we could spend the entire evening talking about the issues you've highlighted. But and as to your point, it is partially a public health issue as well, which I chair, of course, and that's something that we take very seriously as well. So we are engaging various city departments to look at this critical issue and talking to partners provincially as well around some of the issues you've highlighted. Thanks. Go ahead.
So, as the counselor said, it's a very complex question that you have. Having said that, noting the fact that we are not building experts in terms of electrical safety maintenance, as you brought up as an issue that's there, building structure, that is our partner division in Toronto Buildings. What we do is our observations, our initial observations. We see things like electrical panels being overblown or fuses being, being not secured and being open wired, things like that. We will do a referral and that would be scored to the ESA, and we'll do a referral as well to that. And the evaluation will be encompassing of that, reflective of that there is something that is of challenge there. In terms of if you see things that you feel are structurally concerning to you, or that there's electrical safety issues, contact 311, put it in. We'll have a discussion with you. We will come out. We will do that inspection with you in terms of seeing what it is there. And if it's under our authority, we'll be more than happy to engage and action it. If it's something under the ESA, TSSA, Toronto Buildings, then we will make a referrals and provide you with the contact information of that referral as well. Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
Before I ask my question of Ms. Stokel and Ms. Ruiz, I just want to say thank you to all the speakers, and I want to say thank you to Councillor Moyes and his staff and any volunteers who are involved in putting together this evening's presentation. Ms. Stokel, Ms. Ruiz, my question is, how do I avoid the same negative experience I've had with municipal licensing and standards? Again, a poor, lengthy investigation lasting 354 days that reminds me, as if I don't need any other reminders, that the City of Toronto and some of its workers treat me like a second-class citizen. In July of last year, I reached out to 311 to inquire about a visitor's parking issue for my building, which is in Toronto Centre. Being already familiar with zoning bylaws regarding parking, I spoke to the bylaw enforcement officer. I promised to email him afterward. I took a screenshot of what I believe to be the relevant portion of the bylaw regarding zoning. I thought that we were entitled to 10% of the number of dwelling units in our building to be allocated for visitors parking spaces 16. Last Wednesday, I received a text that the investigation was concluded. An hour later, the law enforcement officer tried to call me. He left me a voicemail. We spoke the next day. He concluded the investigation without informing me, the complainant. He asked the supervisor to help, to assist, and the supervisor in MLNS, Rent Safe TO Central, indicated that for a building in our parking zone, we're only permitted 3 visitors parking spaces. This morning, I emailed Toronto Building Inquiries on X, the former Twitter. 311 Toronto advised me to call during business hours. I called Toronto Building. The woman I spoke with was very, very pleasant, but she told me that she couldn't help me, but that I could send an email. This is also what 311 Toronto advised on X. I emailed this morning. I got an answer within 2.5 hours as to what parking zone our building is in and what policy area our building is in. The supervisor for MLNS, Rent Safe TO, didn't indicate that in the email. So the investigation is concluded, and my fellow tenants and I are still confused. Can bylaw enforcement actually get the landlord and property management company to clearly designate the 3 visitors parking spaces? There is signage still at the bottom of the garage ramp and also inside the parking garage before you exit. There's no visitors parking. Those paper signs, somewhat crude, have been up there for years. The tenants are confused because they have their own parking spaces. The resident manager provides visitors parking passes. Tenants have to pay $5 for the parking for visitors, which is illegal. And we are unclear as to what this bylaw enforcement officer is going to do. I do not blame him at all. I blame him and his colleagues and the various departments. And I want to know, apart from the fact that I'm going to email Ombudsman Toronto office and I'll CC Councillor Moyes so that he's aware, how do I avoid when I have a simple issue that was answered in 2.5 hours today from lasting 354 days as a City of Toronto bylaw enforcement MLNS investigation? Thank you.
I appreciate the comments that you have raised here today. And again, without knowing all the details and facts, it's very hard for me to kind of respond in terms of what occurred, what communication pieces are there. But clearly, there has been a gap of some sort. If you're feeling and you're the content in the way that you are here and expressing the issue that you have today. Every service division, anything in the city always has an escalation process. It's online, it's there, it's valid. It would be sent up, I guess if you want to call it chain of command in terms of outcomes that tenants, the public, any individual is not satisfied with. So I do recommend that if there's something that there was an issue of that you feel has not been addressed by the officer, by the supervisor, then it be forwarded through that escalation channel. But again, understanding that, not knowing all the details after the meeting, I'd like to have a little bit of conversation to know a bit more of the address, the concerns, because again, it's multifaceted, especially when there's zoning involved, where different divisions, different parts, whether it's planning, zoning, old bylaws, new bylaws. So it's not, it can be complex, but again, our main objective is to, find out what the law is, apply the law, and make sure that the remedies are associated with it are enacted. So I would ask that maybe after we could speak with you as well, just to get the address, and then we can follow up as to what's taking place.
Thank you, Stacey. Tracy. Janet.
Okay, I'll get somewhere.
I'll get by the end of the evening. That being said, we have 5 minutes left, and so please keep your questions succinct, so we could actually maybe get 1 or 2 more questions in.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So your resource or your service target three kind of housing: private housing, co-op housing, TCHC. I want to know how the policy works. If I live in TCHC and I don't want to leave, but if I talk to you, maybe I will have to leave the TCHC. I want to know how the policy works. And the other thing is that it seems that your resource or your service focus on people more than on housing.
Just for clarity, do you live in TCAC?
Yes.
Do you want to move out of TCAC or?
And what? Going to a hospital. For example, if I go into hospital, I want someone make sure nobody go into my room. But the safety unit, I called them and they said, we could not stand in the corridor to look after your things. So me, these kind of things. And the other issue is that it seems someone into my room when I was out, but at least this seems okay. But no, yeah, but this is really, really bothered me. So I want, yeah, I talked to them. They said, the security said, what's your unit number? I think all told me to call the safety unit or client unit or tenant unit. I'm sorry, my English is not very good.
It's okay. I think that the gist of your question though is that your concerns around safety and making sure that your privacy is reserved when you're not there. So we can address safety perhaps and privacy.
Well, so, well, in terms of your safety, generally TCHC, when I did some work in Moss Park, they do have, it was a little community run safety unit. There's usually a safety officer assigned to the building or a group of buildings. So if it really has to do with safety, it is best to speak with your tenant service coordinator. Yeah, if I hope that answers your question, but are you facing eviction in your unit? Like they're not trying to kick you out or anything? No? Yeah.
Next day I will have to be kicked off. Sometimes if you have a resource, sometimes they like doing the laundry or something. They like the street, the whole street. They might kick me out, put me in another place, and use the building. If you have resource, maybe the resource abused by someone. These people may be not in the building.
In consideration of timing and not to get into too many details with you, I would recommend that you reach out to different social services. You have a social service worker. There's also, of course, the legal clinics that assist you with any kind of rights that might be infringed with. Acorn, the nonprofit organization, to assist you, especially with their TCHC campaigns. There's lots of social services out there to get your resource. And again, the different organizations that are here today can direct you possibly in that right direction that you need.
And yes, in addition to my staff is here, so I know that one they give you your card, so we could reach out to my office and we can connect you to the right TCAC staff if needed. What's your first language? Is it Mandarin? Okay. Well, one of my staff does speak Mandarin, so. Just connect to with my staff and we'll work with you to get the right resources. Any other questions? We have time for one more, and I'm pushing the boundaries here for someone who hasn't spoken yet. The gentleman, sorry.
Madam, you're going to have to repeat those points to somebody that can actually take care of your concerns. Right now, we need to address the entire room. If you can, please sit down with Chris Moyes' staff member, and we're going to listen to somebody else now. Thank you. Please
Thank you.
sit down.
Okay, our final question will come from you. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I'll keep it very brief because I know everybody here wants to enjoy their Tuesday evening. Basically, I sit on the Moss Park Coalition, which is an organization that sort of made up of a bunch of different really great nonprofits and social enterprises that work in Moss Park. And a big problem we've been having recently is that there's a lot of construction happening in the neighborhood, a lot of revitalization in terms of, there's the Ontario line being built alongside a lot of new condo developments, which result in a lot of the people who already live there facing a lot of displacement and a lot of being priced out and a lot of being, no longer able to afford to live there. And a big problem which we as the coalition are facing, which I believe a gentleman earlier raised, is just in terms of enforcement. We have condo developers who are beholden to set aside certain number of units to be like RGI units, or we have then beholden to certain amount of their investment has to go to community development or things of that nature. And it's been a bit difficult to really ensure that those things are followed through on, and it's been a bit difficult to ensure that we're really able to enforce those kinds of things. So I guess if any of you guys have any advice or strategies to share in terms of that, that would be incredibly useful. And alongside that, I did also want to mention on the rent evictions point, a big problem we're having in a lot of the neighborhoods is also like demo evictions. Like a lot of buildings are being destroyed, and a lot of more affordable mid-rise buildings are being destroyed and replaced with big condo developments. And it's been sort of an ongoing problem, which I'm sure everybody here is aware of. But also one that's been a bit difficult, a bit thorny to sort of really address and get your hands around and ensure that we know what the solutions are, but how can we ensure that we enforce those solutions and we make sure that the people in power, developers or governors or whatever, really follow through on the things that they say that they'll do. Yeah. I apologize. It's a very macro question, but anything, any insight, any of y'all would want to share on that would be incredibly useful. Thank you so much.
Unfortunately, I don't think the right persons necessarily are here because I think a lot what you have to talk with is about city planning and development and making sure that certain units are a certain percentile of market rate rentals and so forth. That's that. So they would have the ones sort of the oversight of that and any sort of development of it. The only thing I can suggest that right now, again, because it's sort of outside of our program scope here is, and I know it's realized, is contact 311 about your concerns. Again, 311, as Elena said, is a hub that can be redirected, or I'm not putting the counselor on spot either, but maybe that's something if you have concerns about a building that is supposed to be a certain percentile apartments versus condo ownership versus the development. I think that's something that the city planning division and the construction and that they would be able to support your inquiries as to why A versus B versus C is taking place.
It's also important to note too, though, like there's been a lot of changes when it comes to tenant rights and development in the province of Ontario. The current provincial government has really bulldozed how things are built, the size, the scope, this percentage of unit sizes and 1 bedroom versus 3, 4 bedrooms, right? So it's really the system is set up really for developers, uh, and not really for you and me, I'm going to say. And at the city level, we do continue to push to encourage the province to do the right things. And we do that at various tables across the city spectrum. For example, I do sit on the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. I also sit on the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. And at those tables, I have direct connection to the ministers and to governments, both federally and provincially. And we actually address some of these issues. But I think also it's important to put pressure on the province because at the end of the day, they are the main decision makers when it comes to the housing rules. For example, when it comes to what do you call it, rent control, that's been sitting on the desk of the premier for the last almost 12 years. And nothing has transpired since. And we continue to put pressure on the province to actually bring that forward. So I hear you. I agree with a lot of things that you said, but as a municipality, there are limits to what we can and cannot do. So with that, I just want to thank our amazing panelists. I'll start from my left, Drew, yes, Susanna, Janet, Alana, and Stacy. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And as I mentioned, I actually, well, yes, and thank you to my staff and the volunteers who came in today. We really cannot do this work without them. So, and thank you for actually coming as well. I have to say that, we're always, well, not they, I'm always a little anxious because we spend so much time trying to organize these things and not people don't always show up, right? So I'm happy to see that there's a number of you here today, and also to those who are joining us online. Thank you for joining us as well. And I do have a few comments I have to make here in my notes over here. See, I remember it. I didn't need to remind it. Um,
Where's my screen?
There on Friday, June 27th, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Oh, I know why. No, it's because you're.
Saturday and Sunday. So please join us at the marches. The trans march will begin at 8 p.m. on Friday. Side march will be at 8 p.m. on Saturday. And the main pride parade will be at 2 p.m. Sunday. And please check out my website, events page, to see all the pride events. Upcoming events, other fun events, we have beauty, this the Outdoor Gardens of Five Minutes a Day.
Whatever.
We have our round
Because my iPad died, the sound is not going through anyways.
So bring your whole homework.
Well, sort of, but it's like.
Still 5 minutes for shredding.
Yes, with no sound.
No sound is fine. You can see it.
I know.
That's broken segment. We invited Dr. Steve Bay to provide all the people with creative prompts. Big phone. Have new soil.
It's always something. Okay. 90, but like the event was basically done. So. In the actual recording, I may just cut off the TC logo, like where that before he got into these events.
and we're hiring extra there to serve everyone. Extra. First this year. Also, everyone likes barbecue and eat. So, come join us Friday, July 25th, 7 to 10 p.m. at the Moss Bar. East for a huge celebration with hot dogs and burgers packets. Allow options to be available. Then evening, available at the setting up local and the host of movie night stars for you the weekend. Hey, yes, but you'll be one of the be while profile inside out or again, thank you, everyone here in the room and online joining us tonight. Again, you can reach me various in office of reason and street. Relevant and Democrat Center of Office of Thursday. From 3 to 4. I call my office. Great back here to let us know. Why you can email our office as well. And though we are social media, Facebook,
No, I like to say this.
We do post, but we do not respond to. And so, so yes, we don't, yes, like, skills match, and so with that, yeah, it's all joining us. Let's go.
Definitely. Well, not the all.
If you're in home, and most of you who live in the neighborhood, and it's so few live so close. Yes, Toronto Center, we welcome everybody, very inclusive, board. Thank you so much, and good evening.
You want me to put this in?